based on this book. I did it after Rabbi Kaplan passed away back in 1988, and finished it by 1987, and finished it in 1990. So I never shared it in class form. It had a tremendous effect on me. It was a very special man.
A master.
He's a very special man.
Kaplan?
Kaplan, yeah.
I love his book. I have his book in this stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I like that he has booklets.
Yeah.
There's not heavy books.
Right.
It's so easy. You read it.
His stuff is a breakthrough out of whatever existed beforehand, because he had the learning, the deep learning, and then he had the physics training, and together he meditated a lot, and he really was able to do amazing. Within 11 years, he wrote 45 volumes, and that includes translations. But even translating a 350-page book is not such a simple thing. And at the end of his life, he was coming out with them every 3 or 4 months. There was another level here. He himself writes in his books that he learned how to lock in. Yeah. He was a personal secretary of J. Robert Oppenheimer. He went to the University of Kentucky, and his physics professor said to him, my friend Oppenheimer is looking for a personal secretary, and I'm suggesting you. So he was in an MA program. And so it was for 3 years, he hung around with J. Robert Oppenheimer, the man who made the atom bomb. And he was a mathematical genius. And he was really up there in that. He was in the who's who of physics, whatever. So I didn't know him at that time, I only met him afterwards. But he had a good way of looking at things. So here in this book, it took me 3 years to do it. It was based on classes. And I was very lifted up. Because I already was learning texts in a yeshiva here, a Kabbalistic yeshiva in Yerushalayim. But he kind of brought me to a whole another level. So I'm very appreciative of. I had met him in New York. My wife was a student of his. He came to our wedding. He spoke at our Sheva Brachot. He spoke about what this book is about, even though I hadn't received the transcripts of the classes yet. It was amazing synchronicity to have this recording of 45 minutes of him speaking about prophecy at my Sheva Brachot, and then get this in the second part of this book is all about what prophecy and meditation is about. So, hi everybody.
Hi. You know me a long time ago. But I still look the same, right?
Yeah. What's your name?
Esther Reuter.
Oh, great.
A very good memory. If that's why you were looking.
Yeah. Wow, amazing.
We had a fight on the way here. I can tell, really?
They're anywhere.
Okay.
The little boys, we asked them where the Kabbalah is.
Now somebody else is ringing the bell. I'm sorry to bother you. Everybody will change. Thank you.
Okay, a little boy said to me, it's not important where the Kabbalah is. It's more important to be clear. And I said to him, I didn't hit him. He should have mentioned, but she stopped me. I said, when you embarrass a person, it's as if you kill them. Did you learn your English today?
Just finished now.
This is my dear friend Eliyahu, who's presently living in Gibraltar and is transferring into Yerushalayim very shortly and bringing the lights with him, all the incredible lights of Gibraltar. When I was in Gibraltar, when I went to Gibraltar, he took me all around. He took me up halfway up the rock, and we saw the Strait of Gibraltar. And there's a Jewish cemetery there, and there was these 5, 6 tzaddikim lying, right?
Yeah.
All like ready to get up.
Yeah.
Ready. They were facing Morocco. It was like and then we went up even higher to where the monkeys are.
Yeah.
So anyone who come to Gibraltar, your class is coming.
Yeah, for sure.
You give tours.
Amazing. Okay, so we're here. We are going to learn what happened is some of the staples did 3 pages and some 4. So if you have a 3-page set, the 4th page is somewhere near here. Okay, what we've been learning about is I would call it simply the creation process, the descent from very high energy through many stages in order to bring about a world that there could be physical matter and human beings living on the planet Earth. And that here on this planet Earth, we could do things that could be re-spiritualize and bring everything back to its source. And the difference, the net gain, the difference would be when we all come back full circle, and really there's really no end, there's circles within greater circles, but when we get back to any major point is that we come back with something that we've gained in this incredible journey that we've come on. We don't go back into the soup like we started. Because in the original oneness, there was an undifferentiated consciousness. We didn't have individuality. And the whole purpose of the creation was the pulling back of the light. It's called the Tzimtzum, in order to create the possibility of individual existence, and with all of the pain that involves. But for the higher purpose that when we would come back, I call it stage 1, stage 2. Stage 3 is coming back, and I make hand movements, but you don't need them because it's not anywhere else, it's here. But going back into stage 3 is going forward into stage 3, which is going into stage 3, which is what? Which is going into stage 1. But the difference is that we existed in stage 2. So does that make sense to anybody? Then you can say, wow. They say, wow, this is amazing. Thank you so much for stage 2, because without this, which is a corridor to the palace, where we can be in a conscious relationship with the one who made us, which we couldn't have before. So this is the tens of stories about the king who sent his son away in order that eventually the son could become king. The gift that the king wants to give to the son is the king wants to make his son king. So there's a lot of stories. Each one has another variant. The Baal Shem Tov, the Zohar, Rabbi Nachman, they all love to tell the story about the son who was sent away. Okay. So last week, we came to a point, we learned a piece from the Zohar. Anybody happen to bring along from last week? It doesn't really matter, it's okay. And so what we saw last week was, let me just read it to you, just close your eyes and allow this to go in.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly. So we have a portion in the Torah in chapter 36 of Genesis, of Reishi. These are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned among the children of Israel. So it seems to be talking about a historical line of kings. Bela, and it gives all these very names and all the interesting information it gives, and you don't even know like who these people are. I've never heard of them. And there's 7 kings who reigned and then immediately died afterwards. And then there's the next king reigned, and the next thing, and the next one, Leah. And then the 8th king, his name is Hadar, and his name, the name of his capital was Pa'u, and his wife's name was Mehetaval, and she was the daughter of Matred, the daughter of Mezahav. So these words have no meaning for us, right? If you look at it historically, like, what do I want to know about this for? Well, 7 kings reigned before there was a first king in Israel. But still, it's there's something here. So that what the Zohar and the Ari do to this is they tell you that it's talking about meta-history. It's talking about history before history. It's talking about the process through which the Creator brought the world into existence. What's that to do with kings? So there we have another teaching from the Midrash that says that there were universes before this one. We learned that prior to our present creation, the Holy One was creating universes and destroying them, creating universes and destroying them. And it mentions it twice on purpose. So these universes here, we'll jump to the chase. We see clearly, I'm quoting from this book here. This is one of the great masters of Kabbalah, who was born in 1840. So you don't see anything here, but that's the real thing. He was born in 1840 and he passed away in 1922 or 26. His name is Rabbi Shlomo Elyashiv, and he writes a book called Leshem Shvo V'Achlama. And the subtitle of the book is Drushe Olam HaTohu, the expositions of the world of chaos. The level of existence that seeded our world is called the world of breakage, the world of the shatterings, otherwise called the world of chaos, in order to bring about our world. And what he tells you is you cannot make sense of our world if you don't know about what preceded our world. Just like in the movie, the old Star Wars movie. You have an interesting thing there that movie, most of the movie takes place before our present epic. Star Vader, what's his name, and this Darth
Vader.
Vader and Luke Skywalker, and all this. This happens when good and evil were basically much more simple than they are now. It happened in an epic. In order to understand our epic, we have to understand the epic that came before us. Same thing in the Lord of the Rings. You see in the movie, at least, the movie is that there was this ring and there was this war, and this guy's hand, it was on his hand, and he died, and the ring falls off. And then the movie switches to this little place where there's little people living, right? And it just so happens that Bilbo has this ring. And it's another epic. But the ring is the carryover from a previous epic. You can't understand what's going on in this world unless you understand the larger framework. So that's what the Kabbalah does. That's what Rabbi Elyashiv does. And he does a very good job, and it's a very powerful teaching, real life-changing. So he says, we see clearly from the above that the kings of Edom, mentioned at the end of Vayishlach in chapter 36 of Reishi, are verily the universes or the dimensions that were created and destroyed prior to our present creation. So that's what Rabbi Kaplan says in chapter 10, the Shattering the Vessels, that there's two metaphors for how God made this world. And one of them is called Shattering of the Vessels. These lights, powerful lights, hit these vessels. We don't have any context on what the vessels are, but the light hit the vessels. And as the light hit the vessels shattered because they weren't able to contain the light. And as a result, the light retracted and recoiled back up, but sparks of the light went down with the broken, shattered vessels into an abyss. And it happened once, twice, 3 times, 6 times, 7 times. And then God said, okay, now we're going to put the world together. And we're going to make a perfected world out of the broken fragments and shards and sparks of holiness that are scattered all over the universe. It's called Tikkun Maaseh Bereshit, the fixing of the work of creation. And then but he left over. I picture it like a 4-story building. There's Atzilut, Bria, Yitzira, and Asiyah. 4-story building, but it's on the side of it is a swamp. And the swamp is still stuff that's left over from the original shattering. Adam was supposed to come and to complete the process and complete the entire perfection of the universe. Instead, he caused the building to sink into the swamp. And so we have a reality now that came about through a shattering of God's oneness into smithereens, right? Purposely. He's going to say that in a second. In order to create, like a father giving a Lego set to his son and saying, here, this is your 5th birthday, and I'm giving you this incredible set of 1,000 and million pieces of Lego. And it's the last second, the father is a physicist. He drops the Lego on purpose, by accident. And the son is like, horrified. Abba, Daddy, it's broken. He says, no, we can fix it. And the son gets on the floor, and the father gets on the floor with him. And just enough, like I call him the Montessori God. He says, I'm not going to help you. I don't want to tell you this right, this wrong. No, I'm on the side. I'm here with you just to know I'm here. I'm backing you up. You put the thing together. Daddy, I can't do it. Like a million pieces. They're all up inside. I can't do it. So Daddy gives us a vision of the wholeness and then takes it away. And every time we need it, he gives us a vision of the entire thing in its wholeness before it's cracked, in order to give us the hope and the ability to work with the pieces in the broken world that he's created for us. And that he wants us to be the builders of the world. And he wants us to know also that he's actually building it through us, because we couldn't possibly do it. So I hope that this is an introduction. It's a fast introduction. Don't worry about it if you didn't understand what I said. It's a drama, right? I call God the great dramatist. He created a drama that's going to go on for a few thousand years. And once we get the idea that we're actors in the drama, it gives us a reference point above this world to understand why he would do this to us. Like, why does he do this? Okay, so the Leshem goes on. His name is Leshem because it's the name of his book, but his name is Rabbi El Yashiv. God will restore. This is the reason that each king is said to have reigned and died. This tradition about prior levels or dimensions of existence, you don't have this, is also alluded to in the well-known teaching, quote, it arose in God's thought to create the world with the attribute of justice. When he beheld that it would not have continuance, he brought forth the attribute of mercy, and he joined it. The fact that they thought to create the world with the divine attribute of justice preceded its being joined by the attribute of mercy corresponds exactly to the fact that these kings ruled in the land of Edom, which is red, which is judgment. And then only after they reigned did a king of Israel reign. Israel represents the eighth king. It's not just as a people, Jewish people. The concept of Israel is the concept of Yashar El, of the completion of mankind as a complete corporate entity. And also it's Yesh Rala. Yesh is existence, and Rala is relationship, is existence for each and every single human being, and yet relationship to the whole, which is why Rabbi Kaplan in his Sefer Yetzirah made a circle with 22 points on it for the alphabet, and joined every point to every other point. And there's 231 lines. It's called the Rala Sharim, the 231 gates of Jewish meditation. Reish Lamed Aleph. 231. It's the number of lines from every letter to every other letter of the 22 letters. Yesh Rala, Yisrael is Yesh Rala is the perfect combination of total individuality and total connection to the whole. We don't have that, but at least that's what the name means. So, as the Idra Rabbah, the Zohar says, the code word Edom refers to the place where all judgments are bound and rooted. This is why each king was destroyed and died immediately, without suspension of judgment, without mercy. I bring a thing from the physicists about what's called the redshift. But I'm not going to go into that now. But the astronomical parallel to this spiritual teaching is called redshift. Visible light is a spectrum of colors. If an object moves closer, the light moves to the blue end of the spectrum, and its wavelengths gets shorter. But if an object is moving away, right, the expanding universe, it's called the redshift. So red in Hebrew is Adom. So the Torah is an ancient prophetic text telling us about the creation process. I'm not going into the details. The Leshem says none of this implies a change of mind on God's part. Rather, the entire reason for having created and destroyed these prior universes so that they could become the primordial foundations and roots of the entire creation. Since, however, all of these universes were powerful gvurot, very volatile powers, only destruction could ensue from them, causing almost endless fragmentation and separation in the process. All this was according to plan. In this way, the primal roots of all that was to exist for the entire period of 6,000 years of this world as we know it emerged. They all came into existence at once and in a single instant with the reign and the death of each successive king. So I say God doesn't make mistakes. He's the ultimate master craftsman. Were he creating a world only for his own purposes, he would have immediately created a perfect world. He is certainly capable of doing that. But his intention was for us, human beings, to become part of a process. So as the Father breaks the Lego, so the same thing here. I end here with last week's page, which is, this is why God created destroyed worlds. The intention is not that he made a mistake and scrapped the first world. On the contrary, that world and all the worlds that followed it were extremely exalted and sublime, too exalted and too sublime. They revealed too much light. Many contractions were therefore necessary to filter and measure the light even more until you could come down to a world where physical world would exist and God would be totally hidden. So what you have in front of you, if you can relax a minute and take a few deep breaths, is the next stage after having quoted Rabbi Elyashiv. And what do we do with this stuff, right? So I'm bringing it down. I'm explaining a little bit. We'll share. We'll talk. And it is a nice time of day, and the breeze is very subtle but very beautiful. So I haven't had a drink in a few hours. I'm going to do that now, and we'll continue in a minute. Thank you. Chaim. There's water for everybody. Baruch atah Adonai. Put it on silent. So the idea of stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 is very special for me. We're in stage 2. We've tasted maybe higher levels, but basically we always come down, and we're in a world that doesn't seem it's not exactly perfect. Jerusalem is an excellent example. There's a very powerful spiritual energy here. And yet, either it's a bus driver or whoever, or a cab driver or a bank clerk or whatever, they'll manage to make trouble for you. Or somebody in some garb. So stage 2 is the drama part, is the movie that we're in, the Matrix. The idea of being in a kind of an artificial reality, but the advantage of it is that when we become aware of it, which is what the Matrix is about, is to train Neo to understand how to overcome the force of the Matrix and to break it to overcome it, to become awake in it, because everybody's asleep. So the
Two guys went to a Kabbalah class, and after Kabbalah class, they created the Matrix movie.
Yeah. Some also say that they stole it from somebody else who wrote it, but whatever the case. Yeah. Whatever the case, it does have some very deep things. I have a friend of mine, his name is Mordechai Greenfield. He shows the movie in 3 parts over 9 hours, and he teaches Torah through that movie. He's very good at it. We've seen many movies together, and it's an excellent idea because our generation needs very deep movies, and very deep books are being written, and they're in a way a secret way of communicating what's going on in the outside world. This very profound idea is being communicated in the movies.
This is part of collectively we are pulling that out through certain people in order to use part of tikkun, so that we can teach ourselves almost through that.
Yeah, there's something deeply wrong with the world as we know it. This is the end of a certain civilization. Western civilization is ending. Our prophet spoke about it, Ovadia especially, who was an Edomite convert, Edom, right? And that we are in the end of the Edom or Roman or Esav, right? We're in an Esavian world, Western civilization. And so, as Rabbi Yosef says, even though the Torah, the Kabbalistic teachings of the Torah describe it that there was a chaos and that there was a rectification, but really the truth is that that's only relative. Relative of all of history is chaos. And there's divine providence, but it's within a world where everything goes wrong, a break-in, a fragmentation. And at the end, the Messianic age is the state of perfection that ends the 6,000 years of history. Then we enter into 7th millennium, 8th, 9th, and now in time, which was much larger before Adam, then it's squished and became time as we know it. And then as the 7th millennium and the 8th and the 9th are not going to be normal 1,000-year periods, we're going to go back into eternal time. So this is a very specific time and place that we are. This is as Kabbalah sees it. And that's why I sent out to everybody. No, that's why I put on my Dropbox and I think I gave to you this.
No man, this week from me.
I showed you the picture last week, and I can give you more. This picture here, the 6 days of creation, and then going into history.
It's the pictures I did for you.
That's here. That's here at the bottom. It's not by chance you're sitting next to me. These pictures are the pictures with 1,000 words.
I just want to record it, but I can't find where it's button.
I don't know.
Okay, but it's being recorded here. It's video, it's audio, and we'll get it to you.
Okay. Many times ago.
So okay, a line of thought, but that's maybe not important. Yeah, so the idea of 6 days of creation, that something wrong happened every day, the Midrash says. Something went wrong. There was some mishap. And finally, the big mishap is in the Garden of Eden on the 6th day. And then we go into history. And we're promised that we're going to now retrace our steps and get back all the levels that existed beforehand and close this particular cycle. Where we're holding in that stage right now is that we're just about have gone completely from 1240 to 1490 to 1740 to 1990. So we're more than 3/4 of the way through the 6th millennium. And we're up here now. Right, this cosmic clock idea that something has to happen between here and here, between now and 2240, which is the end of the 6th millennium. When we get to the year 5,999, and we get to 6,000, we begin the 7th millennium. So something has to happen before that. And here in this one, this is just an acupuncture chart, but I like it because it has a lot of points on it. And our teachings tell us that we were here at every stage, that the first souls that were ever born were from the head of this body. The Talmud calls it the treasury of souls. It calls it goof. Why does the Talmud calls a treasury of souls goof? Because they are destined to come into body, into goof. And the other reason it's called goof is because goof is a hierarchical structure. So the first souls were born were from the head of this treasury, from Adam till Jacob. And then Jacob went into Egypt, into the neck of the body. And then the children of Israel came out into the torso of the body and came into the desert, came into the land of Israel and built the temple at the solar plexus of this body. And at the same time, souls are being born that are coming from relative to this body. Then we went to Babylon and we came back and built the second temple, which is the circumcision. We go into 2,000 years of history, and we are the souls of the feet of the body of history. We've been here before, but there's always more of us every time there's a bifurcation. So in this, that really doesn't do justice to this, but in this diagram we are here, in this diagram we are here, and in this diagram we are here. In other words, each one of them is poised now at the same transition point to start coming back into full consciousness of who we are, what this planet is. But we've had empires who have ruled the world, and they have established a certain mentality, a certain way of thinking, Paro, Nebuchadnezzar, etc. The prophet said, from the bird's eye point of view, that these were matrix mentalities. The real mentality is that we are souls who come from a higher dimension, and we come down into this lower dimension, into the purposely broken world, in order to become part of the fixing of the world. So this is, again, the Torah Kabbalah on giving you a context within which to understand your life, my life. Why was I born as I was born? Why do I have the brothers, the sisters, the father, the mother? Why am I built the way I'm built? That's what the Kabbalah basically, after telling you the big story, comes down into more and more of the micro, so you understand, and you can actually make peace and be happy with the incredible life that you have. And then you start from the inside and you live from the inside. Why I did all that, don't ask me. But I wanted to share something important with you on these pages, so that's what I'm going to do. On page 2 of the Constriction of the Light, so with Hashem's help, what we're trying to do when we learn about these things is to become part of the fixing. If you're not busy being born, you're busy dying. If you're not busy going up the escalator that's going down, you're going down. So these teachings are, for me, at least, they were given to us through these teachers, through these masters, in order that when we would get them, they would do something to us. Let's see what it does. Top of page 2 is a 2 in parentheses there. As the Idra Rabbah, which is the Zohar, and Rabbi Elyashiv intimate. Everybody on the same page? Mm-hmm. The cosmic process known as Shvirat HaKelim, the shattering of the vessels, and Mitat HaMelachim, the death of the kings, was the necessary antecedent and precursor of these 4 lower universes that we call Atzilut, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. Very beautiful names. We've learned about them in the months past, but we didn't learn actually where they came from. So this now is telling us that every time we learn something, then we have to go back to what preceded, and then what preceded that. So the Kabbalah takes you up, 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 in order to come back down, 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 in a more realistic sense of where we are and what we're doing here. So there's 4 universes now, but what preceded them was this thing called the breaking. The environment in which this process took place is therefore called Olam HaNikudim. It's another word, just what do you need it for? But it's important. It's called the universe of points, or the universe of separate entities, or the Olam HaTohu, the universe of chaos. Both these terms refer to the multiplicity, fragmentation, and seeming chaos that were spawned as a result of withholding and concealing the light of God's love, which is called the Tzimtzum. It was precisely through a shattering process that God chose to reveal and express what Rabbi Elyashiv calls the essential ontological roots of what would eventually evolve into the 4 lower universes. What does that mean? So you see that the holding back of the godly light. Again, now I remember, the reason is that here in the Midrashic level, there was a lot of light on day number 1. And yet then the Torah says that God separated the light from the darkness. So that means that he took the light up. The Sefer Bahir says he took 6/7 of the light and held it in abeyance and created the world with 1/7. And then here again, the lower waters were divided from the upper waters, which means that the upper waters represent the totality of the light, and the lower waters are now the minimization, the diminution, in order to create the next lower down. And the next lower. Every time there's going to be less light because there's so much light up here. And even by the Garden of Eden, it's tremendous. There's a world of light. And yet relative to what preceded it, it's now the possibility of free will, of 2 human beings who can go against the godly will. So the purpose of showing this was that the filtering out of the major part of the light at every stage in order to create the possibility of a drop down into a lower dimension. And that the Torah does it in 6 days, with the seventh day being the Sabbath, but it's really just a symbolic number. So this is called the holding back or the concealing of the light of God's love. It was precisely through such a shattering process that God chose to reveal and express the roots of what would evolve into the 4 lower dimensions. In order to bring a lower dimension of creation, a lower level of creation into existence, and the lower level is always defined as dark relative to the stages of light that precede it, the light of love must be withheld. The reason for this is that the light of love acts to bind and unify, and therefore tends to preclude the existence of anything separate. So the purpose of this process, on the other hand, was precisely to bring forth the possibility of separateness. How does God, according to Kabbalah, create a world? It's impossible, because God is infinite and there's only oneness. There's no way, there's no place. So God has to make a space within himself. One of my friends once said that when we hug somebody, we make a space within ourselves for another. We make a space, a hollow space. We get out of the way in order to make room for other. So to get out of the way is something that's very hard for an infinite being. So that's why we consider this like the very existence of anything other than God. And so the paradox is that there really still is nothing other than God. But the appearance of a world, an important, necessary illusion, in order to create the drama for our sake, the gift that the infinite wants to give us is existence, infinite existence, the eternal existence. So he goes to trouble to make a Matrix-like movie that for us is very real. And there is such a thing as death. The kings themselves are said to come from the coarse aspect of the lights themselves. This is very interesting. That what is the fabric of the fallen world, even the forces of evil themselves, really come from good. It's fallen good. So the idea is here that if there was, God would have created evil per se, there would have been nothing that you and I could have done to rectify it. But if God creates good, and then as a result of what you and I do, or as a result of even what he did, he allows evil to come into existence, which is by definition that which obstructs the light, that which obstructs the realization of the consciousness of one. Even if, but because evil comes from the lights itself, it is really the coarser aspect of the light. So therefore, there's a possibility for us to lift it up. Psalms by King David is a work of lifting up that which has fallen. It doesn't take for granted that you're cool, that you're enlightened. The first verse says, "Happy is the man who has not walked with
The counsel of the wicked.
the counsel of the wicked, who has not stood with the ways of sinners, and who has not sat or dwelled in the what?
Seat of a scorn.
In the seat or in the dwelling of the scorners. So you walk, you stand, you sit. You're lucky if you're just walking, but if you start to stand and listen to this creep who's talking to you, and then you sit, means that you're already, it's the downward cycle. The rest of Psalms is coming out of that downward cycle. And take it for granted that there's a world here that you, like King Solomon said, En tzaddik ba'olam asher ya'aseh tov v'lo yecheta. There's no such thing as somebody who's not missed, who's not gone down, who's not screwed up. It's a world of screw up. And then see what you do. Do you desire to rectify, to come into oneness, or are you part of the fragmentation process? It's not like a club of these in a club of people who are all right and the all wrong. It's which direction are you going?
So it's like then this is the individual process of the like Olam Hanikudim, or like the shattered universes is not this, doesn't have to be this big thing with the cosmos. It's like our own life.
It's our life, yeah. If we see it only as a cosmological, we don't see it that every aspect of creation is a reflection of this and of this process.
Very good, Dad. I like how you put it.
I don't know how I did it. Maybe somebody else said it.
It's coming.
Okay. So, but really, let's internalize it. That it gives us it really is a gift, and it's certainly not a perfect vessel giving it over to you, but it's somebody who's lived it. I have lived it. So this is now they're holding at the Red Sea, and they saw this incredible revelation at the Red Sea, where the sea of nature parted, and they saw the world behind the world of nature, the world above, the dimension above. And that's what we try and connect with before we enter into the Shemona Esrei, into the Amidah, in order to be above the facade, above the veil. We enter into direct, immediate relationship. So, with your permission, maybe even against it, the kings are said to come from the coarse aspect of the lights themselves. I love to learn this in Hebrew, and that's what I've done in years past. But I decided it would be much, much too complicated to do it and then have. So forgive me, but I do teach this in Hebrew, and it's clear. But whatever the English can do, I try and make it that it's somewhat understandable. As we have noted, this refers to the withdrawal and concealment of the light of Chesed, in order to separate the coarse aspect of the light from the finer. Now, that is a very interesting thing, and we can talk about it. It's called in Hebrew Or Hadak, the Or Hagas, and it's a spiritual teaching that in the texts that precede the Ari, Rabbi Azriel of Gerona. So he says, well, he lived 750 years ago. So he says it like this. He doesn't talk about, the Ari is a little bit more technical, but Rabbi Azriel of Gerona lived in Spain, and he said it like this. Hayesh hu ba'ain be'inyan ain. So it's like a Zen koan. Hayesh, that which exists, hu be'ain, it existed in the no exist, be'inyan ain, in a state of no exist. All that presently exists existed in the infinite no thingness in a state of non-existence. Ve'ha'ain, and the no thing, hu hayesh, it is all that is, be'inyan yesh, in a state of existence. And then the long translation is, and despite the illusion or the appearance of separateness that we experience after having been created, the infinite no thingness is all that exists. It's no longer in a state of ein, however, but rather in a state of existence. This is non-dualistic. There's no such thing as that he brought forth the world from non-existence. He made non-existence into existence. He makes a difference here. He says that that which is not necessarily only to be seen as that which comes forth from nothingness. Rather, yesh and ein, is and not, or yes and no. Yesh, eno in Hebrew, eno. Yesh, no, eno. Yes, no. Yes and no together constitute a single unity. From the most ultimate terms, yes is nothing other than ein, disguised as yesh. In truth, they are forever one in complete, undifferentiated simplicity. Contemplating this in a highly attuned meditative state is permitted. With regard to analyzing it, on the other hand, King Solomon said, don't be overwise. Why should you destroy yourself? Our normal intelligence is simply inadequate to the task. The reason I'm bringing this here, and he says even more, it's very, very beautiful, is that what the Ari calls the dense light that was in the finer light is called finiteness in infiniteness. Actually, he says that also. And then we're going to see in a moment, there's a metaphor in one of the books that's used that there was a grain of sand in an entire ocean of water. The sand represents the quality called din, of judgment. I'll define in a moment. And the water represents love. So the Dead Sea effect is to tzimtzum all the water out, and what's left? Sand. Wow, my goodness, where was the sand? Well, when the water was here, it was subsumed in the water. It was like the Caribbean. You look down from a helicopter, and it's just like totally clear water. But the sand was there in it. Finiteness was in infiniteness. But now, when he retracted his light on purpose, he brought forth the possibility of finiteness, stage 2. So all these ideas should be a real mix in your minds right now, but it does lead to some very interesting understandings. So on page 3, back up in the light of Ein Sof. We have the two at the bottom, above the footnotes in the text itself. Back up in the light of Ein Sof, the realm of infinite possibilities. Choshech, the power of darkness, the contra of light, was there in potential. How? In Ein Sof, is not only chesed and light. Chesed light is major, is dominant, but there is a minor, inferior potential for darkness. In order to understand this better, we turn to a Sefer Simchat Kohen, a primary Kabbalistic text wherein the light of Ein Sof is likened to a great sea of chesed, but the sea also contains the equivalent of one grain of sand, the potential for gvurot. What is the definition of gvura, of severity or din, judgment? Is the desire that man work from the bottom up, because if the light only comes from the top, then man can never become man. So he has the work to do is to be the channel for godliness, but never to think that he's God. Abraham was a channel of chesed, of God's chesed. Isaac was a channel, of a merkavah, of God's, of another aspect of Hashem. But never do we hear in Judaism that there's a God-man. Isha Elohim, there is a man of God, in the sense that they say that from the top up he was God, from the bottom down he was. But they mean to say that the idea of a human being is very important. That we are not God, but we have the ability of embodying godliness. So that the tzimtzum has to do with creating a world where man can exist as a master of his own destiny, or perhaps to begin as a destroyer of his own destiny and have to fix what he does, and to learn that he's living in a world where what he does has consequences. Notice it's a school. 6th grade now, we're in 6th grade. We're going into 7th grade soon.
Doesn't that grain of sand make it dualistic? Is there a state even beyond that where there is not even the potential?
Here I say in footnote number 8 at the bottom, saying that Ein Sof is or has not only chesed, light, but also the potential for gvur, darkness, might be considered problematic because it implies duality or multiplicity within the Godhead. There are two possible ways to answer. First, as Rabbi Elyashiv writes, even the term Ein Sof cannot be properly applied to God's absolute simple essence. His absolutely simple essence is without manifestation and cannot be described by any name or descriptive adjective whatsoever. Hashem himself is beyond anything we are describing here. So that's what you just gave. That's the answer you just gave. The other answer is Rabbi Azriel. We find another way to answer this in the profound teachings of Rabbi Azriel of Gerona, teacher of the Ramban. In short, Azriel's answer is that the Hashem includes all opposites in his exalted unity. To say that he is or has only infiniteness is to limit him. The key is to how to understand this without falling into the trap of thinking that there is any duality, whatever. But I do go into this here, and it's just that was just in order to give a short answer. I lost her. Okay. So I just want to go to the next page, to page 4. Just give you the example of how this book works, and then we can go out of the page and into our shared a loving space. Page 4, up above an Ein Sof, and of course that's a spatial metaphor. There's only water, and the sand has no separate existence. It is literally subsumed and dissolved in the water. Evaporate the water, however, and you create a Dead Sea effect. Lots of salt that was there the whole time, but which was subsumed in the infiniteness of the waters of Chesed. By way of analogy, he says, in Hebrew, Derech Mashal, Gergir Afar, B'toch Yam HaGadol, Eno Oseh Achirut Ve'eno Nirgash. And the single grain of sand in the midst of a great sea, this grain is so tiny, it causes absolutely no murkiness in the water, and its presence is therefore not felt in the least. Yistanenu hamayim. When the water is filtered out, however, yistanenu, the word for a filter is a misanenet, a sieve. So he's using that word in a very interesting way. When you filter out the water, the grain of sand that was there the entire time is revealed. So I said the rabbi uses a metaphor of a sieve or a filter. We can understand this better if we imagine the active simsum, the contraction of the godly light, as a powerful vacuum pump that sucks up all the water, leaving behind the salt. The judgments, all of which are called impurities relative to the level of light that existed before. According to Kabbalah, all this is in order to bring a lower universe into existence, whose rectification would depend almost entirely on man. He finds now a way of doing this within the actual verses of the Torah, which I found very nice. So look at it with me. So too here in God's absolute love, and this is not just throwing around the word love. The context within which our little school of hard knocks exists is a universe of love. That's called the lower 7 sefirot, whereas the higher sefirot are total grandpa, grandma, and love. That is constricted or simsum. It's hidden in order to create a world where that's not the revealed reality. That's the hard thing for a lot of people. That's what every religion is dealing, every system on the planet is, what is this system? The Gnostics say that there was a mistake in the creation process, and as a result, there's a demiurge, a false god that has power over this world, and they called it the God of the Old Testament. The God of the New Testament is the God of love. We never hoped for that. We died instead of that. We said Shema Israel. We said, you're dualistic, even you're crazy. God doesn't allow mistakes. As I said before, God doesn't make mistakes. He did this on purpose. If you don't get that, then you fall into that trap. So here in God's absolute love, judgment is completely subsumed. But why would there be judgment? It's because the desire to create a world with human beings in it, with other entities in it, with a world. We don't understand completely, but we say that this is somehow very primal, to say the least. We can't talk about the Ein Sof or beyond the Ein Sof in total understanding, but we say that if anything defines God, it's the desire to give. Right? It's love in its essence. Only when the koach hadin, the subtle root and potential for judgment, is gathered together in one place does it thicken. This itself is brought about as a result of the majority of the light of the blessed Ein Sof being withdrawn. Or if you don't want to take withdrawn literally, God hides it, but it's right here, but it's hidden, leaving only the subtlest impression of itself down below, together with the koach hadin, shuhu shoresh hadin, the subtle root and the potential of judgment. So the light goes up and leaves behind something that now becomes the root for a world. This is the meaning of let the water below heaven be gathered into one place, that the dry land may appear. And I never understood the verse like that. The vacuum effect. Let the water gather to one place, and now let dry land appear. Dry land represents what? The island of human existence within the sea of godliness. And the word mayim itself, mayim is mem yud mem, is very similar to H2O. There's two H's and one O. Whatever they are, it's two mems and one yud. Right? And the yud is like an island in a sea of water. And that's where we have our place. Of course, he could cause a tsunami any second, but we have to know that even while we're here on this island, that the island is made of the same water as the water is.
Is that why Jerusalem don't have water?
Well, they said that Jerusalem doesn't have water, so you shouldn't visit it like you visit Tveria just for the hot baths. It would be like coming here and saying, I want to go in that water. But now we don't have physical water. I want to go in that water of Yerushalayim. That is, let the waters gather in one place with the withdrawal of the light of Ein Sof, such that down below in the place of the Tzimtzum, the dry land will appear. This is in contrast to the situation that existed before the Tzimtzum, when the light shone in its full intensity and judgment was subsumed. In the Torah, it's called Elohim and Havaya. Havaya is the context within which a world of Elohim is brought into existence. That's why the first chapter of Reishi is all Elohim, Elohim. Only in the second chapter, B'yom Asot Adonai Elohim Shem Eretz V'Shamayim, is now we're introduced for the first time to the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, but within a context of a world of Elohim. Whereas the next world is the phasing out of Elohim into the world of Havaya, and that Elohim will exist within the context of Havaya. There's not two gods and there's not two anythings. It's just different names for the different aspects of the tools that he's using in order to create this situation. So we did it. At the bottom of the page, in sum, God desired to create a world in which his existence would be hidden. At a certain point in the creation process, in order to intensify the hiddenness, he initiated a series of shatterings, which in astronomy, astrophysics, is the Big Bang plus all the supernova explosions that followed it, which involves coming together and coalescence into powerful stars. And then in the stars are like furnaces, very hot. And when they explode all throughout the universe. And then they coalesce again and explode, coalesce and explode. And finally, after many, many of these, then the possibility of life as we know it is made possible. But it's not possible up at the higher levels. So the idea in Kabbalah, complete parallel to the idea in physics, is that energy had to become cooled in order to create the possibility of matter. We could live on a planet, and then from down here within our own beings, we could become instrumental in bringing the entire universe back into its higher energy states. That's it. That's enough for the paper. Having been learning in yeshivot for 25 years before I started teaching, I could learn in a book for 10 hours at a time. But most people are not used to such things, so let's get normal. If you wouldn't mind, let's do a little meditation. And we'll start with some breathing. Sit comfortably. And breathe in and out become aware of your breath as you do. Feel your stomach first, if possible, and then expand your rib cage. Hold it at the top. Take in some more. Hold it. Stretch your shoulders. Loosen your neck. Now let your air out. All the way down, slowly or fast, whatever you do. But when you get down to the bottom and you're empty, so keep it there for a while. Don't take in any air. And then even more, feel that you can actually let some more air out at the bottom. And feel that vacuousness inside of you before you take in your air. And then come in again. And again, come in again and come up all the way to the top and hold the top. Put your head up. Straighten your back. Let it out. All the way to the bottom. Hold. The better you get at it, the more long you can do it. But the point is, it's really nice to hold at the top and the bottom. The idea of taking in air, according to the teachings of the Ari, is to connect to the transcendent. The inhale and the stretching of the body upwards and the pointing of the head upwards, that the head is a yud, the yud of Hashem's name, and your forehead is called the apex of the yud. So you're really basically asking to connect to your higher soul level and to the higher souls with whom you are connected when you're breathing in. And then coming down, even though you're exhaling, but like a balloon, it's losing its air, it's collapsing in and on itself. And therefore, it's an integrative mode, is to come down, breathe out and come down into self. In other words, internalize as much of the higher level of your soul that you can, as you can, with each exhale. And then you can even stay up and breathe in and out in an up position. And you can go down in a down position and breathe in and out. Because you've already now established the idea that your spine and your brain are the top of Mount Sinai, of your heavenly experience, of the infiniteness of God, of your connection to that. And the going down into the bowels is the integration of that into every part of your being. So you can breathe in and out in any place, any position you're in, but the positions themselves become meaningful. So the last thing I'll say is that the teachings are that above the world of the sphere, above the world of the breaking, which we learned, there's words for it, there's names for it. The point is that there's a universe of oneness. The reason that the Creator brought us down into the broken is to be part of His creative process, to give us the ability to become gods. So that we can now connect with, even within this world, with the level that preceded the breakings, and manifest that in our walking, in our talking, in our being. And that's what's being called, that's called the Messianic light. That's the coming down of the unified light into the broken world in a way that it's not breaking anything anymore. On the contrary, it's causing things to come together and people to awaken. And it all is just very simple with your eyes closed and you're just breathing in and out. But breathing in and out is the same as Hashem making the universe. It's an incredible connection to the cosmic process. Beyond the trees and the mountains and the biosphere is a world of love. Beyond that is God's mind. He wants us to build up from the bottom, to understand the language that he speaks. I'm giving you a world. I've given you a beautiful world. Behind the physical world is a world of chesed gevurah tveret, of love. And behind that is chachma bina v'dat, chabad, is my mind, is the reason I made the world. And you are the seed of consciousness that I placed within the world. And that seed is now coming to fruition. I planted it long ago, and now it's about to come to fruition. And when it finally does, then you and I will meet directly, and the world will disappear as we know it. And then it could be the world will reappear, but it'll be a different world. This is what the Baal Shem Tov taught, what the Ari taught, all the great teachers, that we have to get connected to a deeper level of reality within the brokenness in order to become part of the fixing. So, we'll just sing a song now and breathe with it. Na, na, na. It occurs to me to remind you all that it was a good summer, it was a good winter here in Israel, and it rained a good amount. And the Kinneret is really healthy, very full. So it's one of the highest levels of water that we have, certainly in Israel. When you go in it and you're in the water, it's the most beautiful mikveh, and you come out and realize this is a sea of water and this is a sea of air. This is also a sea, and it's really a sea of Ruach HaKodesh. Hashem is not like in the old days, only certain individuals who get it. It's being ready now that every single person, there'll be a quantum leap. So, B'ezrat Hashem. But going into the Kinneret helps tremendously to get there. So I bless you all that you should go. I'm going soon. You should go on this trip. You want to go together?
When are you going?
I don't know. When are you going? Yeah, you have a week till the wedding.
2 weeks, family.
That's great.
Until the end of June.
Oh, I love it. So happy. Thank you so much.
Tonight?
Tomorrow night is Rosh Chodesh. Hi, Andy.
Is that tonight?
Tonight.
Tonight is Rosh
No.
No?
I got it.
Wednesday, Thursday? No, Tuesday. No. Oh, okay.
Tonight.
Thank you very much. It's a new moon, a new head. Rosh Hadash. Okay. Okay, wonderful.